Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. I'm Carrie with Pins and Books, and today we are doing the August wrap-up. It is August 30th, so I'm really pushing this one back. Normally I would post this on the last day of the month, but I think I'm gonna just push it back for editing and all that jazz. Plus I have to re-record part of September's TBR because so much more things are happening than what I anticipated. So first things first, I'm going to be changing up how I do my wrap up. Let me. There we go. So I'm going to be changing up a little bit of how I do my wrap up. I'm going to go. I'm thinking I'm going to go in the order that I actually completed the books that I read. So I actually have a thing, it's open, I can see it. But yeah, so the books, actually, we're going to start with the books that I didn't get to. I know you guys did not get an August TBR, and for that I greatly apologize, but something had happened with the file, and when it was uploading, it didn't complete, and when I went to go and try and re-upload it, it was gone, which means I probably deleted it. Please forgive me, I do apologize. So first things first, I did the Aurelium Novice Path readathon. Did I have to do it? No, I wanted to do it because I wanted to join the Aurelium Academy thing. I was going to give myself 2 months to do it, but then the announcement for the readathon for September popped up, and I was like, I've already met the requirements in order to do it, so I'm going to go ahead with the readathon instead of just pushing it back, because I wanted to kind of keep up with it because I thought it'd be fun. So the first one I did not get to was the White Queen. The White Queen was going to work for the Aurelium Novice Path of the Ashtorn Tree, the Game of TBR, free pick. Actually, I think I changed that out for something else. I did change this out for a different book that I actually did complete. And then my Lord of the Reeds prompt for the other one was Rivendell, which was a place I really wanted to go. And then the TBR trail was Family History. The next one I didn't get to was The Handmaid's Tale, which is the Game of TBR adult sci-fi. Another book I did not complete was House of Sky and Breath, which was a Game of TBR adult fantasy, and my Dungeons and Books Wisdom Roll. So that one's going to be moving over to September. I'm actually currently reading it, but since I didn't complete it, it does count as not being completed, of course. Sorry for the shaking. The next one I actually swapped this book out for a different one with the same booktuber, though. It's a Herkiad 1.0 prompt of small booktuber recommendation. If you guys have been watching my Herkiad updates, I did complete the Herkiad 1.0 Kickstarter prompt with Wolfsbane. So I re-rolled and got a new book, or new prompts to follow, which this one was going to be a small booktuber recommendation. And so a book fiend named Mel, in one of her more recent recommendation prompts, or one of her wrap-ups, she really liked The Hymn to Dionysus, so that's one I was going to read. Unfortunately, it was going to take me 2-3 months in order to get it, and so I decided to cut that one for September, and I will go over the one, of course, I swapped it out with. The next one I did not get to was for the TBR Trail The Quest, and was a social scroll, and the scroll that I had picked was Shards of Earth. I, again, just didn't get to it. The next one that I did not complete or did not get to was my Dungeons and Books roll for Intelligence, which was the Heir to the Shadows, which is moving over to September. Herkiad 1.0 small booktuber recommendation. So this is Amanda's Booktopia. I recommended The Shield of Sparrows. Again, it was going to take me 2 months in order to get that book, and I really kind of want to go through these prompts, and I don't want to spend 2-3 months on one prompt when I have so many prompts to get through. This is going for 1.0 and 2.0. The next one was this one wasn't required for the Aurelium Novice Path, but the background for my character is that she is a wildling, which means that she grew up out in the wilds. And so I chose Fellowship of the Ring for that prompt, which also went with my Lord of the Reeds Battle of the Morannon, which was a book that scared you. The reason that the Lord of the Rings kind of scares me is just because it is a classic. I feel like there is an obligation to like a classic. And the first time I tried to read this book several years ago, it didn't end well for me. I didn't enjoy it. Sorry, that's my watch going off. The next one was a game of TBR prompt of Thrift a Never Heard of book. And the book I had chosen was The Colossus Rises. I didn't get to that one. The next one was another TBR trail. It was a magical realism. This is the second month we've gotten magical realism. I chose the same book, The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue, and I once again did not get to her. The next one was a Herkyed 1.0 small booktuber recommendation. This is an A-Star Reads recommendation of A Song of Race and Ruin. Just didn't get to it, so it's moving over. The next ones, there was quite a bit. We have the Lord of the Reeds reward book, which was The Eye of the World. Once again, didn't get to it. Herkyed 1.0 small booktuber recommendation prompt for Cat's Book Corner. This was Fables. This was one is now moving over. Game of TBR oldest publication. I had to get the oldest published book on my TBR. And this was Sense and Sensibility, and I didn't get to it. Novice Aurelian Path Dark Meadow. That's the place where my character is. That's where she grew up. And then also with the same TBR, which probably means I couldn't have done it anyway, as Aurelium Academy had to be a dark academia or a school setting, and I chose Hellbent for that one. And then the Aurelium Novice Pass for Illyrian, which is the race of my character, was The Wrath and the Dawn. I just had to pick a book with a red cover. The final book that I did not get to was called Running. It was my Dungeons & Books prompt for strength. I did DNF this book. This is the second time I've DNF'd it. It is not coming back again. I just could not get through it. There was a lot of inconsistencies on how the character was acting. So the books I ended up completing were, I'm going to go in order that I actually completed them, and then of course their rating. What prompts they went with. So again, I'm just changing it up a little bit. The first book I completed was A Diary of a Young Girl. Diary of a Young Girl is the story of Anne Frank during the time of World War II. Her and her family were stuck in an annex together, and it just, knowing how it ended, knowing what happened to the family, which they do tell you, for those of you who don't know, they do tell you what happened to the family, that it just broke my heart listening to that. And it just, reading from the perspective of a teenager, I actually had to remind myself, this is why I didn't get a 5-star review from me. I actually had to remind myself that this was not a fantasy book, this was not a historical fiction, this was a non-fiction autobiography of this girl's life for 2 to 3 years. This was originally published by her father after he got out of Auschwitz. He is the only person to have made it out alive from the people who were in the little attic or the little space that they were in, and it's absolutely heartbreaking knowing that she's talking about a career and her life, her future, and just knowing it's not going to happen. It got a 4.5 rating. This is a very sad book to start with on this wrap-up. It got a 4.5 rating. I really did enjoy the book. Nothing against it. It wasn't a bad book. It's just having to constantly remind myself that this was an autobiography, I think kind of took out some of the enjoyment while I was listening to it and while I was reading it, because I both read and listened to it at the same time. It kind of took out some of that enjoyment. I think having to constantly remind myself in the beginning, this is not a historical fiction, this is not a contemporary novel, this is an actual autobiography. The prompts that one went with was the Game of TBR free pick, and as well as my Herkyed 2.0 nonfiction challenge. The next book I completed was Archangel's Legion. This one is such a good book. I absolutely devoured this book. I absolutely love this series. Nalani Singh is an astonishing author. I highly recommend her books, especially the Guild Hunter series, which is what this one is from. 5-star rate. 110% 5-star rate. This one, I believe that's the only prompt that it went with. Actually, no, there were 2 prompts that it went with. It went with the TBR Trail, the quest, or I think I'm saying, I don't know how, if I'm coastal setting. I had to have a coastal setting, and I think I didn't actually watch the live stream because I was playing a game with my mom. And I think that the requirement was that it had to have like a Coast Guard, and technically they are based in New York. There is a Coast Guard. They're actually based in Manhattan specifically, and there is a Coast Guard there in Manhattan apparently. So, thank you, Manhattan. It also goes with my Dungeons and Book TBR Game Changer Dungeons and Books game, which is to read a series. I knew I would finish this book. It was just a matter of getting to it. The next book that I did complete was The Becoming. The Becoming is the second book. Let me see. Here we go. Yeah. It was the second book in the Dragonheart Legacy by Nora Roberts. I absolutely love this trilogy. This trilogy has actually introduced me to Nora Roberts, and I've been hooked on this woman ever since. She's an I see her name, it's an auto buy. In fact, that's actually what I did at the library. I actually auto bought several of her books from the library. The prompt that this went with was just to read a series from the Lord of the Reeds. I rolled it randomly. I did not pick it. I rolled it randomly. And I ended up getting just this absolutely amazing book, this absolutely amazing story, and I just fell in love with it all over again. The next book I completed was Wolfsbane, which was my Kickstarter for Herkiad 1.0, which is why I got to re-roll for the challenge that I will be focusing on for Herkiad 1.0. I'll post a link to the video where I show you that with my Herkiad updates. I'll post a link to that video either somewhere on the page or in the description. That way you guys can go and watch that if you desire. The next book I completed was The Starless Crown. The Starless Crown was a really good book. I did enjoy it. It was nothing like I thought it was going to be. It's actually a fantasy horror novel. So the ones that it really went with, let me see if I can find it on my list here. So originally it was only for the game of TBR shelves, which is you randomize your shelves, randomize the books on the shelves, that's the book you read. But I also swapped it out with the House of Sky and Breath when I realized I wasn't going to finish it this month for the Aurelium Novice Path entrance, because there is a map in the beginning of the book. And actually, I highly recommend physically reading the book, or at least having a physical copy, borrow from the library, buy it, because there are illustrations that you don't see in the audiobook. Which I did. I mostly listened to the audiobook. I did read a portion of it, like whenever my boyfriend and I were in the same room and he didn't want to listen to my audiobook. So I definitely highly recommend having that physical copy. That way you can look at the illustrations, because there are actual illustrations of the creatures in the book, which I thought was really, really cool. Definitely a detail that you don't see in many fantasy novels, and I absolutely loved it. This book got a 4.75 rating. The next book that I completed was Heartstruck. Heartstruck went with the Mist of Solitude from my Aurelium Novice Path. It is a standalone. It was an ARC book for, I want to say, September or August. September. So it actually hasn't even come out yet. I really enjoyed the book. It was really, really cute. 4 stars. There were, of course, parts of it that I wasn't a fan of. But again, really cute. Really enjoyed it. Definitely recommend it. The next book I completed was Shadowland by Meg Cabot. I have an anthology of the first and second book of the Mediator series. So I read Shadowland for this prompt, which was The Ruin of Sky, which you got to read something with ghosts. So it was a absolutely perfect prompt for it. This is a book I actually started the series like a decade ago, but I didn't fully remember everything about it. And so this really kind of got me into it again. it wasn't what I thought it was. Like, I was looking specifically for a specific book when I'd originally bought this book, or had this book was actually bought for me, or gifted to me, I guess we should say, by a friend of mine, and it wasn't what I thought it was, so maybe I'm missing something, that maybe I was combining two books, or I don't remember fully if maybe there was something else that I'm misremembering, but it wasn't fully what I thought it was for that and because I was kind of expecting it and I was really going to enjoy like the mystery behind it, there was no mystery behind it. It was literally go in, do it, get done. Which, don't get me wrong, I enjoyed the book. It was a really good book. It's a 4.75 stars for me. But again, I didn't really delve into it fully. Like, my enjoyment wasn't quite fully there because there wasn't really so much of a mystery about what was going on. The next book I completed was Full Moon. Full Moon was the Fable pick as well as the August TBR, the Trail pick for free pick. While the Fable Club is no longer in existence, I deleted the club just because there was no real activity for it on it. I wasn't really active on it, so I went ahead and deleted the club. That being said, I did borrow the third book in anticipation of the club still existing. But I'm not, I'm not, if the book goes with another TBR prompt, great, but if not, then it is what it is. But yeah, so I really enjoyed the book. It was a 4.75. The first book is definitely a lot better, but this one covers things that I'm kind of hoping to see maybe some repercussions in the third book. You are seeing repercussions from the first book in this series with this, like, his personal relationships and things that have either grown or kind of diminished. And so I'm really kind of hoping that the effects of the ending of this book kind of move over into the next book. We'll see. But again, this is a series highly recommended by my boyfriend and his friend's girlfriend. So this is a series that is definitely highly recommended. I do plan on continuing this series as time goes. The next book, actually this was one, I finished like 3 books with this one. 4 books that day. Wow. So the first book is Legends and Lattes. Legends and Lattes was a Herkyed 1.0 small booktuber recommendation from Angel Rose Reads. The audiobook and the physical book that I borrowed, both of which I borrowed from the library, both had the novella Pages to Fill, which it wasn't a long novella. It was 20, 30 pages maybe. Let me see if I didn't write it down, but it was only like 2. It wasn't even 3 hours to listen to. Oh wait, that's the wrong one. It wasn't even an hour, excuse me. So yeah, about 20, 30 pages, definitely less than 50. I completed both of them. One of them went to the Herkyed 1.0 prompt, and then if you watch my Herkyed updates, you know that the other one went with other prompts as well, because I was able to split them up because they were 2 separate stories. The other one that I completed that day was Impossible Match. Impossible Match was my August TBR, or August release for Herkyed 1.0 and 2.0. Wasn't a great book. I didn't enjoy it as much as I was really kind of anticipating. It only got like a 2.4 stars or 2.4 rating. So it wasn't great. It wasn't awful, but it wasn't great. I felt like there was not really any conflict when there really could have been. But then again, it is a novella, and I'm not used to reading novellas. So maybe that was the difference. And if it's just me, that's just what that is. But I felt like there should have been more meat on that bone. The next one I finished that day was The Hawthorne Legacy, which was a 5-star read. I chose that as my Aurelium Academy Obsidian Falls prompt, which was to read a mystery. This is the second book in the Inheritance games. Absolutely phenomenal. I've absolutely loved. Both books have been 5 stars so far. I own the other 2 books of the series, And then there's another series that takes place, I think, afterwards that she is currently coming out, that Jennifer Barnes is coming out with. So I'm really excited to complete the series and then move on to her next series. The next book I finished was Creating a Modern Homestead. Now, this was an ARC book. I went with my Herkyed 2.0 nonfiction challenge. I believe that's the only one I went with. But I absolutely devoured that book. It was so good. I really enjoyed the book. It was, again, an ARC read. Came out in August, early August, I believe. This is definitely one that I'm adding to my personal library. It has a whole bunch of stuff for canning and taking care of backyard chickens, and has recipes and sourdough and all things that my boyfriend and I are actually moving towards in our own personal life. In fact, he's at a property that he purchased in order for us to homestead on. So I'm really, really excited for it. The next one, I read 3 books in a day. These are all ARC books. The first one was The Hand-Sewn Wardrobe. You can kind of tell what that is. It was a crafting book for sewing. Now, that being said, hand-sewn, you can she's talking about either hand stitching or taking it to machine. However you want to do it is up to you, but on there it talks about creating patterns for yourself. She doesn't tell you not to buy the pre-made ones, but she kind of gives recommendations and things like that. Has some patterns in there for some common shirts, hoodies, jeans, things like that, which were really, really cool. It was a 5-star book as well. I absolutely loved it. The next one was Sad Nuggie. This was only a 3.5. This was a comic or graphic novel that I really enjoyed. I think it was only 3.5. Not really geared towards me. The audience, it was not geared towards me in particular, just because, again, I enjoyed it, and I enjoy reading little sad nuggy things on occasion when I see them. But having a whole book out of it for me was just was not what I was really looking forward to. I thought that I would enjoy it more, which is why I got it off of ARC, but it is what it is. I was not the intended audience for it. The other one that I read that day was Preserving the Seasons. Now, this one went into more in depth on how to preserve your food, not just canning, but freezing, dehydrating. It was more in depth. Again, had more recipes. Absolutely really good book. It was an absolutely phenomenal book. I loved it. Again, devoured it in a day. Absolutely thrilled to have read it. The next book that I finished was Clockwork Angel. Now, Clockwork Angel went with my August TBR book challenge prompt. Technically, because it goes along with the Bane series. Now, the challenge I've given myself for the quest, or TBR Trail the Quest, is to complete some of the books on my currently reading list. Am I going to complete the Bane Chronicles this year? Probably not. But that is not for lack of... I like reading it in chronological order, which means that there are other books in the middle of the Bane Chronicles that take place, that are separating other books, that are the anthology books that are in there. So, for that reason, I'm not going to finish it this year. That's fine. I'm okay with that. But this did kind of push me a little further. It just got me one step closer to completing the book. And again, I actually really enjoyed this book. Cassandra Clare did absolutely amazing. It was really interesting reading the introduction to the characters you've already met. Because some of these characters you meet in her original series, which was The Mortal Instruments. So re-meeting Magnus Bane and hearing characters' names that you have already heard of before, and even some last names that you will recognize from that series, is just really cool, and I absolutely enjoyed it. The book itself actually kept me hooked long term, unlike some of the stuff from her previous series. So I am going to reread those, because maybe it was just, the time that I was reading it, maybe I just wasn't in a mood to read that one. So I am going to reread those, but this one definitely kicked off the Infernal Devices trilogy beautifully. Absolutely phenomenal. The next book I finished was Court. Court was going to be on my Aurelium arc for an academy setting, because when I looked it up, it says that you were there, but you're only at the academy at the beginning and at the end. The middle pieces are not at the academy. So for that reason, it had to be swapped over. Luckily, it did count for my Lord of the Reeds series prompt. The final book that I read this year, or this month, wow, not year, is Realm Breaker. Realm Breaker was a 5-star anticipation, going with the Tower of Rumination. It wasn't a 5-star, it was only 4.75, but it really went beyond my expectations. With Realm Breaker, the way that the cover looks, you have a girl's hand holding a sword. You learn the name of the sword, it's called a Spindle Blade, and you learn the girl's name, and there's blood dripping down her hand. There is a reason for this, but learning more information about the characters and such that you have been, or no, the characters and such, and then getting the perspective that I wasn't expecting to get. I thought this was just going to be a one point of view book. Turns out it was several points of view. And when I read the back, I should have known that, because it does cover like 5 different characters on there. But I even got a perspective I wasn't expecting to get. I got the perspective of a character who I would have called a villain in the book. So I'm getting a villain's perspective, which I enjoy reading or watching shows that actually do that. Now I'm reading a book that's doing that. That was actually really cool and really interesting to see that character's perspective on why she's doing what she's doing. General stats for the month. I'm actually going to be showing you 2 different reading off 2 different stats, because I am weird. Just, we're working with it. So I completed a total of 19 books this month. Holy fudge balls. I was going to say something else, but we're not going there. I read a total of 5,272 pages. I listened to 115.5 hours. The average rating was 4.38. Books acquired, I actually did buy 8 books this month during my grief time. They actually weren't that expensive, so it was great. I borrowed 17 books from the library. I had 2 rereads. I DNF'd 1 of those rereads, and I started 5 new series. Didn't complete any series, but that's okay. Of those books that I read, that I completed, 10 of them were fantasy, which doesn't surprise me. 4 were nonfiction. 2 were romance. 1 was a graphic novel or comic, and the other one was a mystery and thriller. Those are my top 5 genres for the month. A format that I did, I had 5 audiobooks, 6 ebooks, 4 hardback, and 4 paperback. Of those books, I only owned 5, and I borrowed 14 of the ones I completed. So, that being said, September is going to be uber busy. I am looking forward to it. Why am I looking forward to it? Because I'm insane. That's why. That being said, I am working on my next TBR. Again, like I said, I do have to redo my video that I'm going to be doing. I'm actually kind of excited to redo it. I don't know. I'm insane, guys. This is what I do. But yeah, so I'm really excited to continue on. I hope you guys will join me tomorrow, because hopefully I'll have the September one redone and edited by tomorrow for my September TBR. I'll see you guys next time. Happy reading.